Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the Radical Broccoli podcast. This week's episode is recorded from Ericeira and we have created quite the setup here. We are now on YouTube. And it's fun. We're expanding, advancing the podcast.
Exactly, and we're also back in routine with recording every Wednesday, which feels really good.
It does.
Yeah, we want to be here and provide you with the energy that you tell us every week that you love.
Yes.
And we love to hear that.
Thank you for your messages. First, I want to introduce us for the first-time listeners. So we are Anette and Susanne. Anette and Susanne, you can call us what we want. We are the creators of Radical Broccoli, and we're also sisters.
Yeah.
And we have worked together for 6 years. And we're currently both living in Portugal. Well, me part-time at least. And we are so passionate about inner work, about following your dreams, really creating the life that you love from the inside out. And we talk about this through business, motherhood, friendships, relationships, anything that comes up. And it's also the reason we have created a membership where we have amazing people joining us every single week for Zoom lives where we gather teachers and we have ceremonies and real talks.
Yeah, and all because we believe that you heal and grow in community.
I actually heard a really amazing podcast this morning on my way to the kindergarten. And it was Dr. Joe Dispenza talking with Jay Shetty. And just to prove what you're saying, because he's talking about how it's scientifically proven that when a group of people come together with a strong intention to heal, their actual cells change in just 7 days.
Wow. That's what's happening in our retreat.
Yes.
That's just what I was thinking. I was like, why does it always happen so fast on the retreat?
Yeah. So it's not only... It's because people, when you come together and you process information and it gets so strong when you are in a community.
Yeah.
And then with the intention, you go inwards, you break the patterns, you create a new personality and a reality for yourself. It happens so fast. And he says he has this, I mean, they test the brainwaves of people. They test everything.
Scan, yeah.
And he's seen people go from bankruptcy to millionaires. He's seen people going from stage 4 cancer to thriving. I mean, he's seen the most incredible things.
And he has also healed himself from severe back injury. I think he broke his back in 7 points. And he was told he would never walk again. And that's how he found this method.
Yeah.
If you haven't checked out Dr. Joe Dispenza,
Please do.
yeah, he's changed my life.
Mine too. So,
and millions of other people's.
Yes.
Just proving what many people think is woo and spiritual or just not possible. He proves it.
Yes, that's what's so cool.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's what the brain needs. You need scientific proof because the brain is a problem solver. It looks for problem and solution. And if it can't see it, it's hard to believe it.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, anyways, that's us.
Yeah, and we're so happy to have you here listening and following along and also coming with input and suggestions and feedback for the podcast. We love it.
Yes, we love it.
Yeah.
So for today's episode, we have some topics that are very in tune with the astrological forecast. It's Scorpio season.
It's Scorpio season.
And actually, I'm starting to love Scorpio season. I know that sounds... I used to be so afraid of the whole sign Scorpio. And last year, I birthed a son who's a double Scorpio. And now I'm starting to understand that Scorpions in the astrological sign is... They reveal truth on the deepest level. You cannot hide anything. So basically what they ask for you is that you live your truest, most authentic self. So actually it's such a beautiful push and transformation that this season is asking from us.
And exactly probably why it scared you. Because who wants to reveal truth on the deepest level?
Exactly.
We all feel like we have something to hide.
Yes.
But just to explain for those who don't know what's like when we say Virgo season or Scorpio season, it's the astrological part of the year. So every month the sun changes sign. So everyone who has a birthday from today and for another month is a Scorpio sun. So that's why we call it Scorpio season. And there are said to be certain traits and things to come up during every season.
Yes.
So what characterizes, for example, last season was Virgo season.
No, Libra.
Libra, sorry. So that was all about balance and relationships. And before that, it was Virgo. So then it was all about organization. And always in September, you feel a very strong need to like
Get
tidy up and be organized and have your lists.
Yeah.
And then Scorpio season, which is now end of October until mid-end November, it brings the depth and it brings transformation and it brings up shadow, it brings up wounds, and it's pointing you to your biggest potential growth. And it's painful, but it can also be really fun when you learn to flow with it. And that's why we love astrology, both of us, because you learn to flow with
the
nature.
cosmos. Yes, and what's also so interesting is that both of us have had our biggest wounds activated, I would say.
Oh, yeah.
And
Every day.
No, but for me, for example, it's been such a long time since this subject has come up. I felt like I had healed it. And now it's come up in the biggest way where I have to rise to the occasion and stand up for myself. And that's also the theme of today's episode is boundaries, which is such, I think, important topic. No matter where you are in life, if you are a mother, if you are a business owner, if you are a student, a friend, a daughter, a son, a girlfriend, a boyfriend. If you don't have healthy boundaries, you will have your, like in my view, your energy sucked out from you. But to say it in another term, you let your values be stepped on. And that in turn takes a toll, really.
Yeah, and it can often be shown through anger.
Yeah.
Frustration. Feeling unvalued, feeling not listened to, feeling they don't understand me, or I feel so small, or just pure anger and frustration and just like, how could they do that? All of these things are showing us where we feel like our boundaries are being overstepped. And I'm saying feel because boundaries, of course, are not
written in stone.
It's not like, here's a list of my boundaries. I would like to know yours. Even though that would be really practical.
Yeah.
That's not how it truly works. And what I find maybe most interesting with boundaries is that you can energetically sense if someone has good boundaries or not. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, 100%.
Like for me, you are a classic example of someone who has very good boundaries. And then it can be perceived by people who don't have good boundaries like, whoa, she's strict or it's harsh or she just closes down.
Whoa.
You're a very good example on that, but it's in the biggest sense, it is so incredibly positive.
Yeah.
And it shows your strength of character.
Yes.
And that's how I feel. And I would be an example of a person who has traditionally or historically had more issues with setting boundaries. And then people know that. So they will always ask me for that extra thing or an extra favor or always expect me to reply. If I don't reply, then like, hello. So availability has a lot to do with boundaries as well.
Yeah.
And if you then start setting boundaries, oh my gosh, you will feel the backlash because people do not expect that from you.
No.
Do you agree?
Yes, I agree.
I didn't mean to offend you.
No,
honestly,
it's
the biggest compliment. And I look up to you. Okay?
I just hope I don't come off as strict.
No, but you know, not strict, but maybe firm.
Yeah.
And very much self-worth and self-respect.
I get it.
Yeah.
But I get it. And yes, I do have... I do have strong boundaries. But it's taken time. It's not something that just happened. It's a practice for me as well. And I think that what's also interesting is that in some areas I completely lack boundaries, and that's what come up recently.
Yeah.
And that's where I felt really stepped on, and all the things you say, you feel anger, you feel devaluated, you feel frustrated and in a way used.
Yeah.
And that's not a good feeling.
It's painful.
Yes. So that is what we're going to talk a bit about today. We're going to share how it's come up in our lives and also how we deal with it, because I mean, we need a solution.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes.
Did you want to draw a tarot card?
Yes, we're
not just randomly place the cards here and not gonna do. It's just a tease.
So we're drawing a card for this episode.
Yeah, for all the listeners, or for the topic.
Let's see what comes up.
No, we need to decide first.
Okay, you can decide.
Okay, I would like to draw a card. What do all our listeners need to know today?
Okay.
The sun.
I love the sun. Okay, I'm going to look it up while you continue.
I'll show you the card. Looks like this. It's beautiful, and I think it's a very kind of uplifting and positive card. It's in the minor arcana, in the very... It was there.
Yeah. Vitality, enlightenment.
Oh.
Imagine for a moment that you're soaking in the warm rays of the sun. It feels nourishing and healing. All your aches and pains just fade away. The sun card brings this amazing energy into your life. Vitality and health abound, while you feel assurance and clarity in all you do. Spend some time outside today. Be grateful for the radiance of the sun and the life force it gives all creatures.
I love it.
Aww.
It's especially fitting today because it's so sunny and warm here. I know it's probably not everywhere for everyone listening. Maybe it's no sun at all.
No, it's beach weather in the end of October. It's incredible.
It's so good. But if you don't have actual sun, this card can represent actually the topic of the episode, how you feel after you set proper boundaries.
Yeah.
You feel enlightened, you feel expanded, you feel like the sun.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so where in your life do you feel challenged with your boundaries today that you want to share?
I feel very challenged with my toddler. It's been so hard, honestly. Like, it's the most beautiful thing ever and the hardest thing ever right now.
So what's a typical scenario where you feel that you don't have boundaries?
It's not that I don't have boundaries, but it's very specific situations every day where he asks to do something, to have something, to stay somewhere longer, or to not do something that I want him to do. And that kind of strictness and firmness that I know that I need to have. Strictness isn't the right word, because I don't want to be a strict mother.
The boundaries.
The boundaries that I would like to have and communicate in a soft and loving way just feel like it just doesn't work. And it's so challenging also with communication with a 1.5-year-old because he understands a lot, but it feels like he can just also choose to not listen to what I'm saying. And especially when he's already in a fussy or in a tantrum or in his emotions, he doesn't hear me. And also that he can't talk, so he can only say a few words and he can't really express what he feels. So it's a lot of body language, a lot of interpretation, and I'm new to this, so I don't know how to do it. But of course I have my intuition, I have my motherly instincts, and I have people that I look up to. But you're never really taught how to handle these specific situations. So it feels challenging boundary-wise, but also triggering emotionally, because of course I want to see him happy and thriving, but I know we need to get through this hurdle. And of course I know it's very common and it happens with almost every toddler. But for every family it's different, and it will be triggering different thing within you.
All kids are different, so it's going to show up differently for everyone.
So maybe for someone it would trigger more like lack of control or chaos from childhood trauma, or he doesn't love me. So that's not what I feel. I feel like it's triggering a bit of my wound of not being good enough and just failing, kind of. And
so you know you need to set a boundary with him. But
I set probably 10 to 20 to 50 boundaries every single day.
Yeah. And what's the pain there? It hurts to set the boundary, or it's his reaction, or why is it triggering?
Yeah, it hurts to set the boundary because of the emotional reaction and feeling of taking away something from him that he wants. For example, when it's time to go, let's say it's time to go to kindergarten and he's doing something. Let me think of a good example. Okay, this morning he was cleaning all the windows, funnily enough. He had the window spray and he's figured out how to like, psh, psh. So he was doing that, and then I wiped off the thing, and then I was hoping it came to a natural end, but he just keeps going. And so there comes a point where I have to say like, okay, all done now. Can mommy have it? And if he's extra tired or hungry, or if there's something going on, he can be upset by something like that. And then I see my tendency to just be like, okay, just keep going, instead of just staying strong in that, because I know the emotional wave that's coming at me.
I see.
Yeah, and I also feel a bit unsure of whether it's the right thing to do always. Like, I feel like I'm causing him trauma, and of course I am and I'm not at the same time. All parents do, but the goal is of course to cause the least amount of trauma on your child that you can. But I'm just afraid that, yeah, all of these emotions is just like heavy on him. So that's where I struggle to set boundaries, and similar scenarios like that. For example, he wants to climb up on the big wall and it's dangerous. And I have to hold him, and he wants to do it alone. And yeah, I've seen it with some of my friends with older toddlers. They have the exact same challenges, and it's scary because you want to keep them safe, but then they get upset. And then you just feel like you're, being that boring. Like taking away their fun. You don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So that's definitely challenging me, and it's challenging to stay like uplifted and happy and have fun and all of those things when these things happen. And it takes a lot of energy. So for example, then I'm going to switch on, go to work, be in alignment, create, put stuff out there. It's really hard. And it's like that with every life challenge that we have, switching, and then when our lives are very connected with every process that we go through. But that's also the beauty of it, because we can, like here we have this beautiful platform that we can share and connect and be in community when these things are challenging us.
Yeah. And do you have any other life areas where boundaries are coming up, where you sort of feel that you overcame them?
Yeah, I feel like I've gotten a lot better in terms of, for example, replying to things, messages, people. I can now switch my phone off more, and that's a huge thing with boundaries, is our phones and this need and feeling of being available all the time. And I think many people nowadays feel like they have to reply like within 5 minutes or something just because we have a phone. And that's crazy, right? Remember before when we called the home phone and asked for the person, and if they weren't there, you don't expect them to reply.
No.
So I'm taking back more of that in my life, switching more on silent and on flight mode, especially when I'm with my son, because I want to be fully present. And I'm not doing it all the time, so I'm not saying anything perfection around here, but this is my goal, and that's a boundary for me. Yeah. Because it cleanses my energy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've also...
And a business, I guess.
In business, for sure, it's tests all the time. We had a very hard scenario not too long ago where we saw a business that was copying us a lot. And it was, well, asking us to like evaluate whether this was a boundary or not, and whether it was something we needed to take action on or not.
Yeah.
I guess it's still not fully resolved, but business will be asking for boundaries for sure.
Yes.
Also in terms of availability, like I'm not working on the weekends. That's a boundary. I think, we've gotten really good with boundaries with work.
Yeah, I think so too.
And boundaries come very tight together with communication, right?
Yeah. Yes. And one of the interesting things when we have a business like we do and we share from our hearts, we're vulnerable, we help people. And I think earlier that was perceived as you can just take anything from us. We will say yes to everything.
Oh, 100%.
And we had that experience so many times where it's like people expect you to act a certain way because you share some things and then that you're not allowed to say no. So I actually think that's been a very fun occasion to rise to, where you just step into your value and you just say no.
Yeah, and your power.
Yes.
Yeah, I think often we have been, well, in the past we have been kind of not used, but asked for way more than what we're willing to do, or taken way too little money for way too much value, stuff like that. And boundaries have been tested a lot. And I think when you lead a heart-centered, soul-driven, passion-driven business like we do, you think that you can just like, mess around with us. And that's absolutely not the case. So sometimes we need to make sure that it's communicated right.
Yeah, and that's why boundaries is probably one of the most healthy, important things in self-growth.
Yeah.
And of course, it's important for us to be an example of that in our lives too.
Yeah. So tell us where you feel most challenged with boundaries now then.
Yes. So I've talked about this a lot on my podcast, but one of my core biggest wounds in my life has been with my dad. And I have healed it so much the past years. And I feel that we had completely transformed our relationship, where it was very open and just completely different than how it was when I grew up. And I did a lot of work on forgiveness, on understanding my own pain, on healing that. And now, lately, it's come back. And with him, and also I see then, of course, with other men in my life, instead of saying what I really need to say and how unfair I feel treated, I protect them, or I take the pain instead of actually standing up for myself. And I know that this is something that I have to work on for my next relationship.
Yeah.
And I'm actually very excited that it's coming up, because that means it's
something's
already
knocking on the door.
Yeah,
for sure.
It's already working. But
that's a beautiful way to see this, because it can feel like, oh my God, it's happening again. No, I'm failing. I didn't heal it. That in itself can be triggering, but just what you're saying, that it's happening for a very good reason, because you're ready for the next level of that experience.
Yes.
That's so good. That's so important to remember.
Yes. So basically it's a big abandonment wound, I feel. And it's almost, for example, you say I'm perceived as having good boundaries, and it's true, but it's almost, in some cases, I can feel my energy shrink. I can feel just that I want to escape it. That I want to
avoid the whole thing.
I don't want to face it.
Are you avoidant usually in relationships?
Yeah, I would say so. So And that's where it also shows up, for example, in communication in relationships, where occasionally I'm very good at saying what's on my mind and what's important to me, but I've also attracted people that don't necessarily have the emotional capacity to hold that. And then you get gaslighted, and that again just starts to feel like my childhood again. So
that's really hard.
Yeah, it's super hard. And if I don't address it again now, then I know that it will affect other parts of my life.
Yeah.
And it's super hard to share this. I know it sounds like I'm just sharing. It's super hard because what I've also done all my life is to protect this part of myself, to protect, of course, my dad.
Yeah.
I don't want to throw him under the bus, but at the same time, I want to be honest. And I know he loves me, and I love him, but I also know that I haven't been very honest with him with how things have affected me. And I think many can, recognize themselves in this with their parents.
Oh, for sure. It's very relatable. Whether it's mother or father or grandparents or anyone who has been your caretaker growing up. And then, as well as I like to see it, they're your master teachers.
Yes.
So at some point we managed to rise and we managed to see it as a lesson that we're grateful for. And at some point we drown in the pain and it just feels horrible.
Yeah. And I remember when I started this healing journey 6-7 years ago, and I just touched upon this area in my life, I would get a fever, I would get sick for days. It was so...
It doesn't want to be looked at.
No. And now I feel I've come a very long way that I can talk about it.
Yeah, exactly.
And
this is something that I often talk about with my coaching clients. Just that thing you said about truly communicating. Like, okay, so what often happens, and the frustration that often happens in a relationship, is the fact that you don't understand each other or the communication is poor. And many, many times I observe, or we find out, that women, it can be men also, of course, but you're not saying what's going on inside of you. So I teach and I share examples of how it can be so valuable to truly communicate to the other person like they're young, or like you don't need to remember they cannot read your mind. So to understand the full version of you have to share the full version of you. And
that's very vulnerable.
That's vulnerable, and it's risky, of course, and then we risk
abandonment, and rejection.
And that's one of the biggest fears we can have in our life, because that in our primal days would lead to death.
So in terms of boundaries, I know my task and I know what I have to do with 2 men in my life, but it's where I'm challenged. I continue to avoid it, and I'm growing, I'm learning, I'm evolving, and I know I will do it. But I really wanted to be honest about that today.
That's so good. Thank you for sharing.
So, for example, in other areas, it's easier for me with... my son hasn't hit the tantrum age, so with him it's quite easy now.
Yeah.
But I know probably soon I will... it will be different, but let's see how it goes.
Yeah.
But I've also experienced... many times that I am a person who's very... I really see people and I really understand them, and I really am open and very... I share, but I've also many times been taken advantage of in terms of from friends or people in my life who see this kindness and kind of take it instead of value it. And that's also where the last years I have started to learn who is worth having a friendship with and not.
Yeah.
And that's also very, very hard part of growth.
Very.
But when you do it, oh my gosh, it feels... Nothing will give you as good of a self-confidence than actually putting down boundaries.
Yeah.
I don't think you can grow in any faster way.
No, I agree. And I think what you're touching upon with friendship, I find really, really hard because, yeah, in similar ways, like you've been burnt so many times. Like I almost feel scared to fully trust people again. And it just feels like, okay, it's just safer to connect with very few very important people. And maybe that's the right way for me.
Yes, it could be.
Yeah.
And the last form of boundaries, which is probably the most important, I feel is the one with your own self-talk and with your mind.
That's a big one.
And
that's the foundation for all the other boundaries too.
Yeah. So I've had the most challenging weeks in terms of sleep. I have been alone with Ray for, 2 weeks now. And actually now we've found our flow, and I'm really starting to love our everyday life, and I love our home, and I love the alone time that I'm having, and I feel like my energy has just completely shifted. But he's been sick, and that means every single night he's been awake in pain, which has been very both scary and frustrating.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I do, it's kind of funny, but for example, sometimes I try to drive him to sleep when I've probably spent 3 hours trying to get him to bed. My last solution is to drive around town. And sometimes I can almost view my mind going into a negative spiral. And instead of going down, 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 I start to talk or ask questions to myself. Why are you so frustrated? And you're a free person. If you want to take tomorrow off, you take tomorrow off. If you want to move to Bali the next day, you move to Bali. Like, there's no restrictions. I'm not in a cage. And sometimes the mind just thinks that.
So is it because you feel scared about not sleeping because the thoughts of what you're going to do the day after?
For example, I have to work, and I haven't slept in 6 nights in a row, and I haven't had energy to work out, and what happens to your brain when you don't sleep? And you're gonna get destroyed. These are the things I can. And am I gonna lose my mind? Or what if I actually lose my mind?
I would love to have kind of a transcript of the brain when it goes spiraling.
Yes, it's very funny. That's what I mean. And for example, last night I had what I will call the perfect evening, because he fell asleep at 7, super easy. I had a bath, I could finish work, had a nice dinner, self-care, finally my moment after so many evenings where we went to bed the same time because he didn't want to sleep.
Yeah.
And then when I finally put my head on the pillow, I hear
oh my god.
And I almost feel panic.
Yeah.
No, not again. And he was just in pain. He was coughing. He couldn't find his adjustment. And so I have the only thing that makes him sleep in the night these days is if I sit on a Pilates ball. I'm so sore because I've been bouncing for so many hours.
So you hold him in the arms?
And then I bounce up and down on this big ball.
Okay. That's kind of ab workout, no?
Yes. So I woke up so hungry today.
Really?
Felt like I had a workout.
You have.
But the whole time I'm constantly telling myself, and this is a boundary with myself, that don't raise my stress level, because I know that everything will get worse if I raise the cortisol level, if I get panic, if I'm stressed. So I have to change my mood and make it almost fun. Like, here I'm sitting 3 in the morning on a Pilates ball.
Yeah.
And yes, so that has been one of the places where I have had the biggest boundary with myself. And honestly, that has changed. I feel like I have less stress levels in my body.
Yeah.
And I feel that when I wake up in the morning, even after maybe 2 hours of sleep here, 3 hours of sleep there, I still manage to much more quickly get into a good place. And
because it's that self-nagging on top of it all that makes it almost impossible.
yes.
And I recognize it a lot of my own challenges with, for example, motherhood. Or actually, I was thinking about that night that I had Rafe on a sleepover and he wouldn't sleep until 2 a.m.
Yeah.
Again and again, I had to just let it go.
Yes, you have to surrender.
Surrender and make it cozy instead and laugh about it. Because that's what we're going to do in a couple of years. We're going to forget.
I feel like we're gonna look at ourselves from the outside, seeing sleepless
Like the-
nights running on the beach, but at the same time having the best. You know, we don't having such a pure time with them.
Yeah, because it is the best. And we're probably only going to remember the beautiful memories.
That's why people have more kids, because you forget the bad.
Yeah.
So that's a very, very big transformation within me. And I'm probably the most proud of that.
Yeah,
So
that's so good.
Just,
I love that.
Yeah, it's really, do it the next time Luca's in a tantrum. Just be like, just breathe.
Yeah.
And then it won't be, you don't take such an emotional toll on it. And you don't have to think about, then you won't be so exhausted because you can just be calm.
Yeah, it's exactly the same as when I would get sick and I would feel like, oh my God, I have to fix it and heal it and try not be sick and blah, 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 blah. Instead of just allowing it. And it's the same thing that we teach about emotional processing.
Yes.
Everything that we allow, flow. Allow, receive, flow, go through it instead of resisting, panicking, freezing up, cortisol, hell.
It takes so much energy.
Yeah,
And
free ourselves.
if I continue in panic, and sometimes I get scared when it's been sick now for the first time, I've been scared. But also, and I had so many amazing moms reach out and help me through this, really.
Yeah.
And you as well. But just managing to have boundaries with myself and how negative I can go on things that are out of my control has helped me so much. And then the rest I have, the places where the anger still is often where I haven't been able to set the boundary.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. That makes sense.
Yeah, very much sense. So a guidance to you listening will definitely be to notice your triggers, your anger, your frustration, and notice what boundary you are desiring to set. I like to work with desire.
That's true. That's a nice way to put it.
Yeah, because it makes you look positively forward to what you want to create. And then you can write it down. Make a list. Make an action point list also.
Yes.
Small actions, bigger actions, little conversation here and there. And learning to communicate a boundary is also very important. That's a whole other episode, actually.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
But I think this one will apply for everybody now in the Scorpio season.
Yeah.
And also one thing you can always think about is how you react when someone else puts up a boundary. One thing that is super funny, because as you say, you've always been the one we ask in the family to do extra things, and you've always been the super kind one. And I think everybody has known that, and Han has asked you for extra things, really.
Oh, for sure. My partner knows this also very well.
Yeah. And what was so cool was when you got pregnant, because you're an Aries rising.
Yeah.
And Aries, they are fireworks. And your son is an Aries.
Oh, yes.
So when you got pregnant, you were angry for the first time. I mean, you were as a kid as well. You had rage.
Yeah, we had a lot of rage.
Remember?
Yeah, it was super
getting in fights with you. You were physically scary.
Yeah,
but
shit, I was strong. I'll beat Anette.
You were so strong.
Poor girl.
Yeah. And also in surfing, it's 2 areas, and I love to see when you get really angry.
I get so pissed off if someone tries to take my way.
Yeah. But I think this is a side from you that I really think that this is the side of that Luca is poking out from you. And I see many places in your life where you still have to set boundaries, where you don't.
Oh, and gosh, enlighten me. No, not here. Afterwards.
Where you do everything. But I just love to see how much you've grown since you got pregnant, and how Luca has in so many ways pushed you to set boundaries. Yeah. And now he's doing it in full speed.
He's working hard. He's exhausted.
Yeah.
He's like, Mommy,
for God's sake.
I'm working here with the angels, the spirit guides.
God. I'm having a tantrum every 10 minutes for you.
The source sent me here to solve this.
And you still don't put down a boundary.
Yeah. So we can look to our kids as our teachers as well.
Yes, for sure. And I think the hardest part about setting boundaries is to feel like a bad person.
Yeah, and I think my biggest challenge is upholding it afterwards when you get the reaction. Like you set the boundary, you send a message, you say something in a phone call, you take a decision, you communicate it, and then afterwards comes this emotional backwash.
Yes. That's when you feel like a bad
And then
person.
you have to do it again, almost. Or stay firm in it. And you just want to be like, no, I'm kind, I promise you.
No, I think it's super hard.
And it's hard to do it with love.
Yes.
Which is the purpose. Always.
And sometimes in life you just have to step away from people, because you can put up however many boundaries you have.
And they still climb the wall.
And they climb over.
Yeah.
And so you just have to remove it altogether.
Yeah.
And that's very painful.
Yeah.
But on the positive side of setting boundaries, from what I've experienced and where I am good at it, is self-respect. You don't go to bed at night. Like sometimes I can't sleep because I'm so angry at a person. And it goes again in my brain, and that's just because I know I haven't been able to set a boundary. So you don't spend so much energy on being angry at another person.
Yeah, because you're giving away your whole life force energy to that person.
Yeah.
And without gaining anything.
Yes. Yes. So you will just feel lighter, and I think that many people that I work with actually have to set boundaries with their parents, and it's very hard in the beginning. Yeah. But what happens on the receiver end is a little bit out of our control, but most of the times people rise to the occasion and they start to respect you on another level. Yeah.
But it's like a little test happening when the boundary is set, and are you able to hold it? If not, are you going to step back again and start from scratch? If you hold it, okay, together we grow a new level of mutual respect.
Yeah. So that's what we wanted to share today. Very deep and dark, just
Scorpio.
like the Scorpio.
Yeah. And then we also, we work with this in our one-to-ones in coaching.
Yes. Biggest part of life.
A huge part of life.
Huge part of it.
But also on our retreats.
Yeah.
And in my new course, which I want to mention.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah. So I just launched on Monday that I have created a new course for the pregnant mamas, going from the maiden to the mother, going through the motherhood portal basically. And as we've talked about also just now, it changes everything.
Yes.
Your body, your relationships, the way you view yourself, and also your boundaries. So part of the course is actually very much about setting new boundaries and becoming that lion mama that protects her babies and herself with so much grace and respect. So I created this course out of my passion for helping pregnant women thrive, and not just thrive, but actually also going into the depth of the pain and going through it instead of just feeling a little bit uncomfortable all the time or a little bit emotional
or alone. It's a very lonely journey,
for sure,
even if you have an amazing partner, but it's because it's happening to your body.
You feel the weight of it in every sense, emotionally, physically, mentally. And I want to create the space where you can feel in community. You can feel held, you can feel seen, you can feel heard with everything that's going on. And there's so many strange things that also happen in pregnancy that you're questioning. And sometimes we Google stuff or ChatGPT, you get an answer, but you don't feel like fully trusting and held by that.
Yeah, and you get tested a lot in pregnancy. For example, do you want this test, that test? Are you gonna scan your baby every week? Are you gonna trust the process?
Are you gonna hand over your trust of your body to the medical system? Or are you going to hold it within yourself? Are you going to do a combination? We also talk about this in the course. And both of us, we had a very strong intuition that, my body knows what's going on here.
I'm so happy for trusting that.
I'm nature. I am a woman. I am created for this.
We're born to give birth.
We're born to do this, and we both gave birth at home, and also had minimal interference in the pregnancy.
No pain medication, and also amazing recoveries.
Yeah. And such connection in the process. It's not just pregnancy is just happening and it's normal and it's painful and it's blah, blah, blah. No, this is my biggest change of my life as a woman. And I want you to help you to feel that connection, to know what your intuition is saying, to feel connected to your baby, to love your body through it, even though you feel like you're becoming a whale, like we all usually do.
And what you're actually also helping women with is to have better birth. Because the better you feel and the more you release of trauma before you give birth, the easier the birth.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And it's just the biggest investment, not the biggest, it's the best investment you can do to get the support. I wish I had it when I was pregnant.
Yeah. There was a lot of people saying that on Instagram and I thought it was so sweet. I was so happy. So the course is releasing on Monday, 28th of October, and there's a wait list that I would put a link to in the description. There is a new reel where you can find also the new account that I've made to follow along more of the journey. And it's going to be incredible. I'm so happy.
Me too. And I have to add lastly that, you were there with me when I gave birth.
Yeah.
And you did such a great job. I mean, you helped me more than the midwife that was there at the beginning. And
Thank you.
You just used your intuition, and you have this very heartwarming way. I think that this is your purpose and what you're born to do. And I've said
I'm
that
very excited
very
about
many times.
Yeah.
So yeah, anyone who gets to work with you in this area is so lucky.
Oh, thank you so much. So if that's one of you listening who are pregnant or soon pregnant, no matter which stage of pregnancy you are, the course will be applicable to you. And I want to say, we release a lot of generational trauma. Birth stories that have been passed down to us, fear. We learn to set boundaries to the fears, and we learn to hold our vision of what the birth we want to have. And I also want to say, oh my gosh, this is so important. The level of self-worth that we have will also determine what birth we choose to have. So self-worth and self-trust will guide you to your dream birth.
And there's not one answer under that.
No.
It's just your
personal,
body says.
authentic way of giving birth that you want. And to get there, you need to go through your fears. And you need to allow yourself to know your desires.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah, and we also would like to guide you to have a look at our upcoming retreat in May.
Yes.
Extending you a huge invitation to join us.
Yeah, back to what I said in the beginning, how fast healing happens when you come together as a group.
Yeah. Simply incredible. The results we've seen, they blow our mind.
Yeah, just yesterday, the retreat we had 2 years ago, we still have a WhatsApp group, and they're like, can we please have a reunion? Can we please meet? Can we chat? I want to hear what everybody's doing.
Yeah.
So the connection to the people you're there with is so strong. It's bonds that just, I will say, last a lifetime, because you do something so incredible together. And everyone has such a unique spot in my heart. And it's just fun. It's growing together, having fun, laughing, crying, releasing, and just doing it all in a very beautiful environment where you feel very high self-worth, and just
it's such a gift to yourself.
So please join us. We would love to have you, and we know the group that comes will be the exact group that's supposed to be there. So with that, we want to say thank you for listening.
Thank you so much.
I feel like I'm gonna have emotional hangover after this episode, but
really?
That's okay.
The vulnerability hangover.
Yeah.
But that's when you know you've gone there.
Yes, I know it was the right thing to do. Lots of love.
Love you.